Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So, Derek, I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys today, and one that a lot of you have been asking me to make. That is because a developer going by the name of Yazor is working on reverse engineering Panzer Dragoon Saga to be playable on PC. And to say that this is one of the best RPGs ever made for Sega Saturn, and one of the best Panzer Dragoon games ever would be an understatement. I have played through this multiple times, both on original hardware as well as Mr. FPJ, and it absolutely always hits. But because it is locked to Sega Saturn, some people just don't want to play this game, or they want to play in a more modern environment. Now there is a build on GitHub now. You do actually have to build it yourself, and you have to launch it through Visual Studio to be able to actually make it work. And while it is completely incomplete, it is a fun test of what this could be, and if it does see more development in the future, maybe we could get to a future in which you could play Panzer Dragoon Saga on your computer with enhanced graphics. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined to watch about the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But now let's move over to the PC footage, because the build you can kind of play around with, and you'll see right now looks completely different than the Sega Saturn version. Obviously the graphics and the textures have been improved, but not every single effect here is going to be working. But as a proof of concept of this thing actually being possible, it is absolutely amazing to see even this progress. Now, of course, I am positing this video as it may never go any further than this, but the code is out there. Anyone on GitHub could pick it up because it is open source, and continue to work on reverse engineering Panzer Dragoon Saga to run on PC. And I really feel like with all of the decomps, recomps, and PC ports going on right now, Sega Saturn is the next frontier, and Panzer Dragoon Saga will absolutely be a game that people want to get running, because this thing has big decomp energy written all over it. It is impressive that it even does this, even if it's not really running at full speed, and you can kind of get an idea of what an actual full PC version of Panzer Dragoon Saga in 16:9 with different graphical enhancements would look like. Because that's just definitely a future I want to live in, where we can play Sega Saturn games on PC, because there's some strange reason the people that know about Saturn and enjoy playing it absolutely love this game, but I get so many comments on the channel that people want Sega Saturn with all these visual enhancements or else they won't play the game, which is a little bit of a bummer, because they're absolutely missing out on some of the best experiences possible, especially because Sega Saturn in North America just didn't really have much of an actual install base. But you'll see here, for the most part, at least this early part of the game is working, and it is absolutely a completely different vibe, even if it is the same Panzer Dragoon Saga that we all know, love, and remember. Obviously, again, a lot of the visual effects here, a lot of the lighting model just aren't in this actual build, and if you do want to build this one, pay very close attention to all of the different directions on GitHub. You need a very specialized file set to be able to actually do this, and I feel like for 99 out of 100 people, unless you're curious, it's not really worth actually doing, because you'll see there was a debug error and absolutely just crashed. Now going back to the Sega Saturn footage, you're going to see the entire lighting engine here actually works, and it gives this cave area a lot more of a visual identity and a lot more of a vibe and drama. That is something that obviously isn't in this build on GitHub yet, and as far as the FMVs are concerned, I've never gotten one to play. And big thanks to Andy D for helping with the build on this one. He had the environment set up to be able to do it, and even he had to do like 5 or 6 attempts until he could get anything that would actually run and load. So it's one of those things. This is going to be a very intensive build process if you want to check it out, and I don't think, again, a lot of people are going to get a lot from it. This is a proof of concept, and it is a demonstration of this being a possibility, but it isn't anything you're going to play from start to finish. You can get like 2 to 3 minutes into this actual reverse engineered PC port until it's going to crash in any number of ways. But I mean, that is kind of the fun about these things. They are just presumptives. They are just future looking towards what actually could be happening with Sega Saturn, because we have N64 recomps and PC ports. We've got PlayStation 2 recomps on the way with a tool. We have a lot of different things out there. So I will leave a link in the description below to the GitHub page. You'll see here reverse engineering your Panzer Dragoon Saga and how you actually have to build it. The directions here are not going to be very clear, so you're going to get a lot of warning messages and a lot of errors when you're building it. That'll kind of help you along the way as to what you actually need, because Visual Studio 2022 isn't something that usually downloads now. It has been actually updated, but you need this particular version, and you'll see here obviously the status is very early, the beginning is semi-playable, and that is basically it. But if we take a look at some of the screenshots, you can see exactly how much more enhanced this is compared to the Sega Saturn. Even though the Saturn has a very fun vibe, I get that it turns some people off, and because the demo has absolutely no audio whatsoever outside of the debug warning message when it crashes, here's what it should sound like. So obviously on this reverse engineering port from the Sega Saturn version to PC, none of the audio hardware and none of the audio has been incorporated. And that's why I say I don't want you to watch this video and think that we're 6 months to a year off of this actually being able to be playable on PC. The developer may never touch it again. Someone may come around and use some of this code and refine it and actually make it possible. But as a proof of concept, we know obviously the Sega Saturn can actually work on PC with one of these reverse engineered ports. And it's not like this is a light lift whatsoever. The Sega Saturn was a very complicated piece of hardware with its dual CPUs as well as VDP1 and VDP2. And in this implementation, it looks like VDP2 is completely not doing anything because that drew a lot of the effects as those secondary graphics on the Sega Saturn. And that is going to be difficult for anybody trying to reverse engineer and port Sega Saturn games over to PC. It is just a very interesting code base and a very interesting piece of hardware. When developers used it well, like Panzer Dragoon Saga here, you got absolutely incredible results, but it does still make it relatively difficult for doing these things. Now, as we go into the open world area, you will see that the frame rate here is nowhere near the Sega Saturn frame rate, and it's not like the Saturn frame rate was some sort of absolute frame beast in the first place, but this just means that stepping through the code is taking a lot longer on the CPU here. And just to give you an idea of what it looks like behind the screen, you'll see all of the different tasks that are being completed, all of the different error messages that are coming up in Visual Studio. It's just kind of an idea of how early this is and how these things actually get made, because you're going to see some unimplemented tasks there, and when it crashes you're going to see an assertion failure. So if you do want to play with this one, again, just don't expect all that much to actually happen. You can definitely tour through it. It definitely is a fun time to see what's going on, but it isn't going to be playable as far as actually sitting down and enjoying it. And if you've never played Panzer Dragoon Saga before, I can't stress enough, it is an absolutely incredible game, one of the best RPGs ever made in my opinion, and definitely the best RPG on Sega Saturn. And it's not like we are not spoiled for choices when it comes to RPGs, especially some of the translated ones. But I do want to live in a future where you can play Panzer Dragoon Saga in 16:9 widescreen with enhanced graphics and all of the creature comforts of actually having a PC port. And when I talk about all of the big decomp energy videos, and I say if you could snap your fingers and make one game instantaneously playable on PC, I would say Panzer Dragoon is in the top 3 responses as far as games people would want to play. You leave me a comment down below and you answer that question again. If you could make one game immediately playable on PC, which one would it be? And if you've never played this one before, trust me, you're missing out, and don't wait for a PC port. If this seems interesting, if you've heard about it being a good time and you just haven't jumped in yet, just go ahead and play this on a real Sega Saturn, play it on Mr. FPJ, play it on software emulation with either Amir or Meddefen. I can guarantee you're in for an absolute treat of a story as well as gameplay. Because the original Panzer Dragoon as well as Wii, absolutely fun rail shooters, but it was so much fun that the developers actually decided for the third game to turn it into a massive RPG title. It didn't really sound like on paper something would work when you actually saw previews in magazines, but when you played this game, absolutely outstanding. And if you do own a copy of this game, you will know that it is very rare and valuable. I actually own this. I bought it at Toys R Us in New York when I grew up in Vermont as a kid, and I ended up trading it into EB Games for like $10 to buy something else. And to this day, it's probably the worst trade I've ever made, because a complete copy of this game in the US variant is like a couple $1,000s at this point in time. I'm not saying it's worth it, no game is worth that much to play, but it's definitely one of those things, a very boneheaded move on my part. But that's why something like a PC port of Panzer Dragoon Saga would be so incredibly important, because if people avoid this game because they just think it's too antiquated, they're missing out on, in my opinion, probably one of the top 50 video games ever made of all time across any single platform. So hopefully in the future, either the original developer Yaxor continues this work or somebody else picks it up, because Panzer Dragoon on PC would be an absolutely epic moment, and because there's so many incredible Sega Saturn games out there that people have never played before, I could totally see a future in which a lot of them were on PC, because decomps, recomps, and PC ports are going to be huge moving forward as far as retro gaming is concerned, and I think Panzer Dragoon Saga would be a really fun entry point for these things to work on Sega Saturn. But that's the video. Hope you guys are excited, but temper that excitement, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.